Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Cecilia Mendoza, and I am one of the two co-directors of the Educational Leadership Virtual Research Symposium. And I'd like to welcome everyone to this wonderful event that's going to showcase scholarship and scholarly work, research work from both students, graduate students, and faculty from the Kremen School of Education and Human Development. The virtual symposium is providing an opportunity for our current students to engage in learning and disseminating information to colleagues, to partnering districts in showing their work as it relates to the theme that we've identified for our symposium. So the theme for our symposium is research to ignite change. And we feel that there's no better way to ignite change than to have our graduate students in the Masters of Education Leadership P12 program, Masters in Educational Leadership in Higher Education, and doctoral students in the dual platform of face-to-face and online. Our journey began last year, February of 2020, a month before the COVID pandemic changed our lives. With the endorsement of Dr. Susana Hernandez, I submitted a grant through the Division of Research and Graduate Studies. Our intent was to provide a platform for our graduate students to present their research and scholarly work in a face-to-face symposium. However, we quickly shifted our delivery to the virtual platform, which brings us here today. The journey in designing and implementing the Educational Leadership Virtual Research Symposium took a dedicated group of individuals, colleagues, that invested hours in our preparation. I would like to acknowledge the members of the Planning Committee, Dr. Susana Hernandez, Dr. Cristina Luna, Dr. Ignacio Hernandez, Dr. Varaxi Vai, Samantha Ray, Communications Specialist, and Tiffany Jennings, Department Administrative Assistant, all from the Kremen School of Education and Human Development. In addition, I would like to acknowledge a heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Nicole Walsh, a colleague and the co-chair of this symposium. Much appreciation. So we're going to transition into the overview of the symposium. And we have, as you could see in your screen, we have the welcome and an opening from 9 to 10:30. At 10:30, we will transition into session 1. 11:30, transition into session 2. 12:30, lunch and learn. This is where faculty will present their scholarly work. So please bring your brown bag lunch and participate in learning. At 1:45, session 3. And at 2:45, closing remarks by Dr. Susana Hernandez, and we will be raffling out some conference reimbursements for our students. So at this time, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce Dean Urich. Dean Urich is the Dean of the Kremen School of Education and Human Development, and Dean Urich will share some remarks. So please join me in welcoming Dean Urich.
Thank you, Dr. Mendoza. I want to also thank Dr. Vai and Dr. Walsh for organizing and hosting this important event to share the research and the leadership that Kremen is continuing to demonstrate through this COVID pandemic era. I want to thank the sponsors and the volunteers also who make this event possible. And I also want to welcome Interim Provost Fu and Interim President Jimena Sandoval for their opening comments today. It's an honor to share some time with these demonstrated campus leaders, and I look forward to hearing from each of them as we attend this conference together and as we explore our collective wisdom and the challenges that we all face to rise yet again to another lesson and another level of responsibility as we shape the future of education. I want to welcome and thank the attendees that represent school districts and partnerships from across the Valley that represent students who are coming to learn from Kremen leaders, for our Kremen students joining and being co-creators of tomorrow's knowledge and wisdom. I encourage you all to lean into the knowledge and experience that you'll hear today. I've been asked to share a few opening statements, and I just want to take a few minutes to recognize that without research and without critical reflection and open and transparent examination of our educational system, that we are destined to be self-imprisoned with what Lee Schulman called the United State of Amnesia in American education. We will simply wander from one idea to the next without ever looking back or ever looking deeper into why trends haven't changed. Without research, some of the inertia that we face cannot be removed. For example, we still face the questions of why does the American landscape of teachers often look so different from the communities that they serve, comprising more than 80% white women to occupy these important roles in society? We are asking ourselves, if we're doing such a good job in preparing math teachers, as an example, why are American students #1 in the world in math confidence, but not even in the top 20 for math performance, lagging behind Estonia, Latvia, and Canada? We're faced with the question of, despite our concerted efforts to change policy and pedagogy in schools, why do we have more school shootings than any other nation in the world? And we're forced to be confronted with the fact that while we continue to observe in this country violence and oppression of certain groups, why do we claim to have the most liberating and democratic schools in the world? We have some tough challenges and tough decisions to make. So we're called together today to consider how educational leadership might be studied differently and how research may lead to future change that's very needed. It seems timely for us here in Fresno, with COVID cases dropping to 50% of what they were in January. So as we slowly emerge from our harrowing circumstances, it would seem then to me that if there was ever a time for making change through thoughtful study, that time is now. I do not want to over dramatize the current national events, but I will call to mind that in other times in our nation histories, that when we have faced major hurdles and we all have rallied together for the betterment of all, that educators were at the forefront. We also remember those who studied the evidence and acted as Chancellor Castro did and called us years ago to lead boldly. And we thank Interim President Hernandez for continuing in this bold legacy. To address students who are going to be presenting today and attending, you may be just beginning your path as a researcher. So I want to encourage you to choose a worthy cause to explore with your research efforts. Make your choice thoughtful, make it outwardly focused, and toward the goal of intentional change in the world. Kremen has a legacy of service and connection. Choose an area of research that will improve the lives of children and adults in the communities that we serve. I encourage you to seek advice and counsel from Dr. Ignacio Hernandez, who leads the doctoral program, and from Dr. Susana Hernandez, who leads the Educational Leadership Department as a whole. Seek advice and advocacy from your doctoral advisor early and promptly. Follow it, and seek also advice and collegiality from your fellow students so that you can form important alliances in this new venture. But for those doctoral students who are graduating, we salute you and we want to encourage you to continue to join with Kremen in making future change as partners. I encourage you to be humble in sharing your new knowledge as you graduate and as you defend. Be patient as you educate others with your new knowledge. Be gracious and inviting rather than joining the shrill, tone-deaf reflection of the politics that we see enacted today. I'll remind you that the most wise researchers rarely take on such a posture. I've met and worked with a number of wise researchers in my career, and I'm still learning my place and my voice in the world. But I will share with you a chance encounter that I had in 1994, which has forever and profoundly impacted me. I was at a conference in the qualitative research conference in Philadelphia in the 90s. And I saw a man in the lobby who was gaining lots of attention. So I asked my department chair who was attending with me, it was only my second year as an assistant professor. He told me it was Jerome Bruner. Later that day, I find myself sitting across from him in that same lobby on opposing couches. And I thought to myself, I have but one option to engage him, probably in my lifetime. So as the two of us sat alone, I asked him, what were you most proud of? And he described his journey of recognizing the failures of cognitive theories that he and Piaget, Hunter, and Ausubel, and so many others had so strongly championed. He said, we got it wrong. We were caught up and many of us couldn't let go. He explained to me the motivation to write his book, Acts of Meaning, published in 1990, which I had to read as a graduate student. Jerome Bruner remains to this day the most sharp, coherent, insightful 90-year-old I have ever encountered in that moment, but ever so humble about his understanding of the world. And I submit to you that if Jerome Bruner can be humble about what we know, then so can I. So can we all. So I should add, for any doctoral student who does not know who Jerome Bruner is, I assure you he's impacted in some way every single education professor you have taken a class from. So it takes research and thoughtful study to provide excellent leadership, to prepare the next generation of educators. We'll be called to conduct critical research and conduct open and transparent reflection in order to lead, and to lead well. And one last reminder to us all, if you think you're leading, but nobody's following, then you're just out for a walk. Thank you all for your attendance today. Congratulations to our graduates, and good luck to you all in your future research endeavors.
Thank you very much, Dean Urich. Appreciate it very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce to you the Interim Provost, Dr. Fu. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Fu to our symposium.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning to attend this very important symposium. This is the platform for students, graduates, and the faculty in Kremen to showcase their research in areas of Masters of Arts in Educational Leadership, Master of Arts in Higher Education and Administration and Leadership, and Doctorate in Educational Leadership. The themes of today's symposium is Ignite Change. Current research in educational leadership has a focal theme on social justice and actionable change in pre-K-12 and in higher education settings to promote educational success for all students. In the leadership arena, topics include distributed leadership and cultivation of a culture that facilitates continuous improvement. Ultimately, all these researches and action plans lead to higher student success. Now, please pay attention that today's symposium, in addition to the sessions, the Kremen faculty will share research during the Launch and Learn sessions. Please join that session. And the presentation categories include structures for teacher practice and retention, courageous conversations on anti-racism, and the issues in program and student assessment. I hope you enjoyed the symposium. Apply the findings of the research in your work to benefit the schools, teachers, and students, and use the knowledge you gain from today's symposium to better serve all of us and better serve the future leaders of our valley, our state, and our nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fu. Really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, the next guest is our interim president, Saul Jimenez Sandoval. Thank you so much, President, for joining us this morning. Dr. Sandoval, Jimenez Sandoval will be presenting our keynote address. So welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Cecilia Mendoza. It's great to be here. Good morning, everyone. It's a true honor to address you today. I first want to thank the organizers who invited me to participate in today's symposium, Dr. Cecilia Mendoza and Dr. Nicole Walsh. I also want to thank your dean, Dr. Dean Urich, and the interim provost, Dr. Xuanyin Fu, for all their support and their leadership as well. It's truly meaningful to have incredible leaders like them on a daily basis at Fresno State. They do it with their heart. So your topic, Research to Ignite Change, gave me the opportunity to reflect deeply on the meaning of research in my life. So I thought of telling you a bit about my journey in academia, sort of like a genealogy of learning, you would say. Oftentimes, I'm asked, how did you make it to where you are? Which factors led to your success? Which challenges did you overcome? And how have you grown into the position that you have? I'll give you my brief history in hopes of shedding some light into some of these questions, and also into shedding some light into how research can truly ignite change as well. I was born in Zacatecas, Mexico, a state located in central Mexico. It's east of Guadalajara, about 3 hours east of Guadalajara, where I was born. My town was surrounded by mountains with plenty of areas to explore, and with a river where my brother and I would fish for catfish. Dinner time was always fun because my mother would then cook the fish and we would all be together as a family. My father's family had settled in the area in Zacatecas in the mid 1750s. And by 1780, they had built a house where I was born. I had excelled in school at an early age. I learned how to read by the age of 4, and I had memorized my multiplication tables the summer between my first and second grade, which to me seemed like a huge feat back then. I was the 8th of 8 children, number 8, with 5 sisters who took care of me, and they were very supportive of my education as well. And they all seemed to be acting as second mothers to me all at the same time. So you can imagine how that was. Luckily, I had a brother who was 2 years older than I am. So he and I were sort of like buddies. We were cuates, as we say in Spanish. However, the primary source of my schooling had come from my great aunt, my tia Lupe. She never married, but she was a retired primary school teacher by the time I was born. Tia Lupe had a knack for teaching. She made up games to teach geography. We read poems together. She taught me history, and she made up science experiments that we would do in her patio. I had plenty of friends as well. I was outgoing and I was well liked by my peers, and I was not shy at all. By the time I was in the 3rd grade, I had participated in 2 theater productions. One I remember clearly, in which I had the main role of Felix the Cat. I give you this early context of my life so that you can compare that part of my life to what happened when I moved to Fowler, and hopefully make the connection then to our students as well. I was about 9, about to be 10, actually, when I moved to Fowler. It was June and my birthday is in October. And this was in 1980. My parents decided to move the family. My father would no longer go back and forth between the US and Mexico. And instead, we would all come here and help with his small farm. At first, everything was new in the US, in Fowler. I still remember going to the store with my dad for the first time. I had never imagined that 2-liter bottles of soda in all kinds of colors would actually exist in the world, or two-pound bags of chips. That was unimaginable to me, growing up in Mexico. After a summer of exciting firsts, learning how the farm worked, waking up at 5 a.m., working all day, and appreciating the beauty of resting on Sunday, September came and I was enrolled in the 4th grade. This was 1980, and I had a single hour of dedicated English language instructions on Tuesdays and Thursdays. A teacher's aide, Mrs. Valdez, would take me aside and review the basics. She was kind and she was patient with me. There were 2 of us, a girl named Maria, and I would receive this lesson. By the time I started the 5th grade, 1 year later, there were 12 of us who were English learners. By this time, the lessons were Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 1 hour each. The district was catching up fast to the kids who were arriving from Mexico at that time. Our teacher at that time, Mrs. Quintana, would have us transcribe songs by the Carpenters. We would listen to the song, write down the lyrics, and then sing along. There were simple melodies with very clear lyrics, but they helped me tune my ear. And words that seem impossible to pronounce at the beginning, like world and walrus, soon rolled off the tongue. But not all was that easy, of course. I can still remember giving an oral book report to my teacher and pronouncing feathers as feathers. And she, of course, turned to me and said, I won't give you any of the credit for the book report because you mispronounced the one word. I was totally crushed. And then she told me, but you can try again next week. Of course, that meant that I had to postpone getting more points for next week. By the time I reached the 6th grade, the extra lessons stopped, and I was part of the regular class. I became, therefore, a regular student. More immigrant kids started to arrive in Fowler, and a palpable anti-immigrant sentiment grew in the city, in the small city. Insults on the playground flew easily. Sometimes these were especially harsh coming from kids of Mexican ancestry who were California born. I couldn't understand this type of lateral racism and discrimination, but I certainly felt it. This was also the time, of course, of Born in the USA, which also deeply hurt me in my sensibilities back then. I didn't understand the lyrics. I began to feel like I was one of many, not special, without any real encouragement from anybody. I was, in the eyes of my teachers, one of the many immigrant kids who had arrived suddenly out of nowhere, which just simply populated Fowler. And even though Fowler was quite diverse back then, we had a pretty good sizable population of Armenian, Japanese, and some Punjabi American kids. The focal points shifted dramatically to the newcomers, to us. None of my sixth grade teachers ever spoke about discrimination or cultures or history or other parts of the world, or how other parts of the world related to the US for that matter. None saw or asked about my history or my interest or how I was feeling in this new country, or how we as a collective, these new group of individuals, were going through some pretty traumatic times. And the happy social kid that I described to you at the beginning soon became awkward and insecure, and always with a sense that I was out of place. I couldn't find my place in this world. I couldn't relate to the region. I didn't have roots in this region. And certain circumstances aggravated my sense of isolation. My best friend since the 5th grade, Ruben, moved back to Mexico at the end of the 6th grade. My classmate's mother and brother were both deported. They were picked up by Border Patrol while they were pruning a vineyard. They were working, actually, good, honest work. And despite feeling insecure about my English skills, I also became the translator for my mother. As my father was always working on the farm, my mother would attend parent-teacher conferences with me, but I would also translate for her at doctor's visits or any other context that needed my skills. It was both a sense of pride and a huge responsibility. I could see my mother struggle, but persevere. It was during this time that books became my refuge. But as a 6th grader, I was not encouraged. No one gave me books. No one told me to read books. I simply just gravitated towards them naturally. The small city of Fowler Library became a haven for my brother and me. We would go there, say hello to the nice Japanese American lady. She must have been in her 60s. I still remember her. She had a full head of gray hair, little glasses, and she had the most perfect handwriting in the world. And she was always welcoming to us. And since she saw that my brother and I were regulars, she started to set aside books she thought we would like Treasure Island or Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim, Julie of the Wolves, Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, The Bridge to Terabithia, and others. It was Mrs. Tanaka who told me, this Fowler Branch Library has been here since 1910. When I was a kid, I would come here and check out books. Now it's your turn to enjoy it. She saw herself in me, and she saw some of my history. Her love of books allowed her to see beyond my outsider status, and her words and actions gave me my first sense of belonging in this new country of mine. By the time I reached the 7th grade, my teacher, Mr. Alvarez, a Texan who had moved to the Valley long ago, would always comment on all of my work. And I still remember one single comment he wrote with, again, his perfect handwriting. He wrote the following: I admire your willingness to learn. That just blew my mind. I still remember the day I read his comment. I remember placing it in my backpack very carefully, as if it were an ancient scroll containing deep wisdom. I was beaming. I was almost giddy. I got home, gave it to my mother, and I told her, and she looked at me like surprised, like I was, what do you mean you're surprised at this? And she said to me in Spanish, I still remember her saying this, pues claro, hijo, siempre has tenido hambre de aprender. Well, certainly, my son, you have always had a hunger to learn. To my mother, it seemed natural that I receive this note from my teacher. She had seen me grow and adapt to this new life, and she knew about my lifelong fascination with knowledge as well. Yet she was so busy with keeping track of all the details with the house and the farm that she had not had the time to assess how I was affected by the new growing pains I had, mentally and physically, because I was also becoming a teenager. By the 8th grade, I had another teacher who impacted my life, and her name was Val Frum. She saw my writing, encouraged me to write, and confidently told me that I would continue on to college. It took 4 years to receive such encouragement. And even after that, I was placed in a regular English class as a high school freshman, though I had aced every single English class since the 7th grade. And by the 8th grade, I had close to a 4.0. Though I had good grades as a freshman, my counselors did not place me in honors classes. It was only when I requested them at the end of my freshman year that I received honors assignments. Further armed with the confidence that my Spanish high school teacher had given me, Mrs. Vargas, from that point on, the challenge was truly on. I became conscious of what grades represented. The opportunity of college, yes, of course they did that. But more importantly to me, on a very personal, deep level, grades represented the possibility of, one, showing the world that I was worthy of belonging to this valley, and two, making my family proud. 7 years after arriving in the US, I graduated high school as the 8th in my class and was accepted into multiple universities. Today, looking back, I feel I was really fortunate. I had a strong family with strong, hardworking father who taught me the value of work. He was always there, though he was always working. I benefited from my family's Sunday ritual of attending mass, which gave me a sense of belonging and continuity from Mexico, and eventually found my way to this place I now call home and country. Today, I wonder and worry, what about our Hmong, Cambodian, or Syrian students and the trauma they themselves or their families suffered as refugees? What about our almost 18% of students who are English language learners in Fresno Unified? What about our female students who still don't see enough role models in the STEM fields? And all those students who have A through G eligibility come to Fresno State or the UCs, and then they choose not to apply? What type of trauma do our students from impoverished backgrounds have that prevents them from breaking the glass ceilings others, and especially they themselves, have imposed on their potential for success? What about our young men, especially our young men of color, our African-American men, our Latinx men, who don't recognize a constructive form of masculinity in the media, and therefore cannot see themselves as university students succeeding at Fresno State? How will we teach all of our students how to be anti-racist? How will we teach our African-American students to be so incredibly proud of their heritage? How do we teach them to see each other's gifts? How do we teach them to not profile, but to see and value the elements of someone's identity that they prioritize in their own lives? I believe we can find some answers in these 3 lessons I learned as a professor. And here I'll try to connect this with the concept of research. Based on close to 15 years of teaching at Fresno State, and even though these experiences are related to the college level, I believe that there is some truth in them for all levels. So number 1, let's talk about the imposter syndrome. I can remember going to UC Irvine directly from Fowler and thinking to myself, the buildings are way too tall. The university is huge, it's too big. It's so big, I need to take a bus to reach the other side. This thought, though completely trivial, the space is too big, right? Transferred into the classroom, into the following: how will I do well in class when I feel so small and I feel I don't belong? I was suffering from, of course, in the imposter syndrome. I remember being a professor teaching advanced Spanish grammar here at Fresno State and seeing the freshmen come into my classroom. It's a tough class because it requires the students to name and conjugate every single Spanish verb in all tenses, in all moods, plus, on top of that, the most advanced aspects of grammar, which are really, really tough. It's a very complex language. That's a very tall order for our students. Well, I had seen other professors teach the class as a gateway class, the one class that would separate the worthy students from the rest. I decided to change the perspective. I created a class that would empower my students to build their self-esteem. This was not an easy task. Creatively engaging with our responsibilities and constructing material that properly values students of diverse backgrounds and levels of preparation really demands a lot of us. Our efforts in such endeavors, though, have far-reaching and meaningful outcomes. In my version of the class, I gave my students all the information they needed. I did not try to trick them. I didn't tell them, for example, the test will cover pages 20 to 300. That's insurmountable and demoralizing. For anyone who has taken Spanish, of course, you'll know that there are two types of verbs. And any language has these two types of verbs for that matter, right? Regular verbs that have no changes in the stem. For example, the verb to walk in Spanish is caminar. The verb, the stem never changes in any conjugation of any tense or of any mood. It's the best verb ever, right? So caminar would go in the present would be camino, right? Very simple. Then there are the irregular verbs that have stem changes. And Spanish is very, very creative in having a truckload of irregular verbs with a lot of stem changes that are very difficult to keep track of. There are plenty of these. And with these, of course, all you have to do is you have to memorize. There's no way around it. There are no special tricks to these irregular verbs. Take the verb, for example, querer. In the present tense, it changes to quiero, not quiero. So then that's an irregular verb in the stem, right? For the exam, then I would tell my students, I want you to focus on identifying and conjugating the following verbs. I would give them the exact verbs to memorize. Why? I wanted them to understand the mechanics of the verbs, not so much to memorize every single irregular verb. After having understood the mechanics, they would be able to recognize and conjugate any other verb that was irregular. This is often easy, or at least manageable. I learn the form, and I then use my critical thinking skills to apply the concept. Why did I do this for my students? It built their confidence. They were on a path and had a key to visualize themselves as successful students at the university. They knew that if they studied, they would get a good grade because they had earned it. With each exam, I would build in time to review during office hours or with videos that I would send to them. I would encourage them, go home and study, but study for yourself. Don't study for me. Study so that you can become better, to learn more, to know more. You owe it to yourself and to your family to get educated. I would repeat that over and over and over throughout the entire semester. And before every exam, I would say, enjoy your exam. That's right. That's what I would tell them. Enjoy your exam. This is your opportunity to showcase how much you've learned of our language and to participate in over 1,000 years of Spanish in the making. At the end of the class, they left with a newfound confidence in their ability. And this is what I discovered. If the professor sees himself as a dynamic proponent of growth, so can the students follow through. This was lesson number 1 then, about the imposter syndrome. Now on to lesson number 2, writing. I always taught literature classes using 3 sources of information. In order to have my students better understand the lesson, art, philosophy, and history would always be incorporated into it. I'll give you a sense of the first. I don't have time for the other 2. If I was teaching a Renaissance poem, I would show them Renaissance art. I would give them a brief lesson on art history. I would show them a painting like The Birth of Venus by Botticelli, for example. And I would say to them, look at the symmetry. It's the perfect balance of colors. It's the light colors on the one side with the dark colors on the other side, the warm with the cool. It's the optimism, and look at how the human body and its beauty are at the center of the painting. I would transfer those same concepts to our examination of poetry. Renaissance poetry is all about symmetry and optimism and human emotions that are at the center of the poetic vision. Image and poems would then merge together as one single concept, and they would be able to literally visualize what the poem represented. And then the time came for the essay. My students had to come up with their own interpretation of the various elements we had discussed in class. Writing, as you know, takes both patience and practice over and over and over and over. And I would not give them an assignment, no. It was an exercise in identity. I would give them a brief speech and tell them, only you can write a sentence with your special syntax, your specific vocabulary that calls out to your experiences and build from there a specific interpretation. It is sort of like your DNA, and it's sort of like your fingerprint. That's what writing is. I didn't want them to regurgitate my interpretation of the text. I wanted them to interpret the text as an exercise that would help develop their own identity. And I would tell them, every time you write yourself into the essay. You write your philosophy of life. You develop another facet of your complex and fascinating identity. We would discuss the mechanics of an essay, but more than anything, we would discuss the meaning, the exercise, the value that the essay had in their specific lives and how that related to the world of literature as a whole. By the time by the end of the class, my students were discussing deep issues they saw in the text related to race, politics, society, history, the economy, and they would expertly use philosophy, theory, history, and art to present a holistic interpretation that was theirs and theirs alone. And in doing so, they would interpret themselves into individuals who would soon graduate to become successful professionals with open eyes. That imposter syndrome was long gone by now. So lesson 1 deals with the imposter syndrome. How do we overcome that with our students? Lesson 2 deals with the power of writing and forging of an identity. These 2 lessons then lead me to my third and final point, which is research. Research is invaluable to identity. Research provides one with a place of belonging in the world. I'll give you a brief background on how I arrived at the value of research. I returned to Fresno State in August of 2000. I was 29 years old and with a newly minted PhD. I chose Fresno because I wished to return to my family, to my friends, to my neighbors, to a land that I now recognized as my own. I wanted to make a difference in a place where I knew people and in a place that had given me the opportunity to succeed. Back then, most students in the MA program took a comprehensive exam. They would study the reading list, show up, take the exam, and that was that. They got an MA in Spanish if they were able to memorize or regurgitate some of the answers. It was an exercise in mechanics and not so much in thinking skills. A lot of memorization, a lot of history. By the year 2000, in all of the history of the Spanish MA, only three single students had taken a different route to the comprehensive exam. 1 had written a thesis and 2 had written a project. And it had been 13 years since someone had written anything at that time, neither a project or a thesis. I went to a meeting and asked my colleagues, why haven't we been directing theses for the MA program? And their response was, one person said to me, our students are not disciplined enough to produce theses. And then another professor said, heck, they're lucky enough to have an MA. Most of them are field workers or sons and daughters of field workers. What do you expect? You can imagine what happened to the hairs in the back of my neck when I heard this. I responded, though, clearly and calmly. I am the son of a field worker. I get emotional and choked up at this, now that my mother is gone, but yeah. And I'm just like them, and they are just like me. I'm sure they can do it. I'm teaching a class in the Spanish Baroque, and there is a student who wants to write a thesis on Góngora, I told them. The response with them was laughter, was this laughter that was hurtful to me and is still hurtful to me to this day. And one of them said, I'm surprised they can even get past the first verse to understand Góngora. So that was a challenge. A year later, my student, Gladys Rangel, produced a thesis on one of the most difficult poems in Spanish called Las Soledades by Góngora. This was the first of 30 that I chaired as a professor. Why did I invest so much of my time in chairing these theses? They take a lot of work, and I commend all of the chairs that are directing theses and dissertations right now, because I saw that my students were writing themselves into their theses. Each one of them selected a specific topic that called out to them. They produced his or their own interpretation and left the MA program with something concrete, a thesis with their name, published and accessible from anywhere in the world. This thesis became, after a journey of research, a discovery of the world and the self, the rebirth of an interpretation or an individual's interpretation that affirmed a very unique philosophy of the self in this, our fertile valley. I now see that I came to this conviction because I was earlier taught by three very wise figures who made a difference. A Japanese American librarian who most likely endured Executive Order 9066, a Texan who saw a glimpse of my potential, and an Anglo-American woman who saw beyond the surface and touched my future with her faith in me. You will go to college, I'm sure of that. I'll conclude with this. I've given you two stories. One is mine, and another one belongs to my students, with the intention of leaving you with the following. Yes, a teacher and a professor does present and teach concepts. We do that all the time. And we teach the mechanics of the lesson over and over and over. And yes, a good teacher will promote the activity of learning for the sake of building an identity, for the sake of providing a safe space for a student to understand her or his place in the world, with respect to interpersonal relationships, talents, and aspirations. But more importantly, I would say a teacher reads emotional cues and supports character development. In the K-12 system, not all students come to college. I understand that. But I bet anything that every single student who graduates has one special teacher who made a difference, who believed in the student's potential, and who helped the student know more about the world and about herself or himself. So with that, I leave you with this. Here's to the future. Here's to research that builds on and forges individuals, so that we may all become aware of the power that our words and our attitudes we have over others, especially our students, are transformational and transformative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Jimenez Sandoval. What an inspiring keynote. In hearing and listening to you, I saw myself in your story as a Valley person growing up in Woodlake. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my honor.
Thank you. You affirmed many of our students in the Valley that see themselves in the work that we have achieved. So thank you.
Thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, at this point, again, I would like to thank our special guests. Dean Urich, thank you so much for your leadership and opening our symposium. Provost, Interim Provost, Dr. Fu, thank you so much. Again, thank you for the resources that your office has provided in terms of our quest for sponsoring and funding this symposium. So thank you very much. And again, thank you, Dr. Saul Jimenez Sandoval. It's a pleasure, and I am just extremely grateful for all three of you. Thank you. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to move forward, and Dr. Nicole Walsh is going to talk to us about the virtual program overview.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the very moving insight as we forge ahead in education, both higher ed and P12, to create a landscape in which all are included and feel included in their experiences. That was very powerful today. Thank you to the students and district and community partners who are here with us this morning. And as we move through the day, we just wanted to make sure that everyone felt a sense of organization and knowing where they're going, knowing where they're going throughout the day. And let me update my screen. I don't know why you can't see me because my screen is open. So thank you for those of you who are letting us know what's happening here. All right, well, if you could, in the chat, I put the program for everyone, and you can link to it there. You also received it in your email, so that you have that with you. All the links are hot. So when you decide that you want to click on a session that you'd like to attend, you just find it in the program here. So I made a nice big yellow mark. These are all hot links for you, okay? And so as we go through the day, we try to build in some nice transition times, recognizing it's a lot of sitting. And since we don't get to walk from room to room like we might in the real face-to-face type symposium, we built some transitions so you can get up, encourage you to get some water, some coffee, some tea, something, a snack before you head back into your next session. So we will show you, you also have an attendee help center. This is the QR code if you're someone who likes that and you want to scan that with your phone and have multiple devices going for you today. But you also can click here, and that's a hot link as well. So I'll show you how that will work today. When you click on the Attendee Help Center, you will see a helpline. And right here, you just click on the plus button, add in how we can assist you. We have multiple individuals supporting us today. Thank you to Kyle and Calvin Zhang. There are student assistants with Kremen Tech support, as well as myself and Dr. Mendoza. We're going to be on live all day to help you get to where you need to be if somehow you can't find what you need. Also, you'll find the link to the program here again with your hot links. We encourage you also to get on to social media with us today. We're going to be sharing snapshots of screens. We want to highlight and encourage the great work that our students, our amazing students, are doing in the Valley and across California, as with our online doctoral program. So please share out highlights from the day, things that you're finding wonderful and that are resonating with you on social media. There's also the website link. If you want to get one of these fun Zoom backgrounds, there's a link for that as well. So we encourage you to get involved that way. Let's see, I'll also put the Padlet link in the chat right now so that you also have that if you want to open a tab for it. So that's available to you. So you'll see as we go to the strands in your program, you'll note that we'll have 3 breakout sessions. The first 2 prior to the lunch and learn, and then 1 after lunch and learn. And I'll go through our organization today. You will see that each one is organized by strands, and the first 2 sessions will have 3 strands. And we've organized the topics around particular strands of alignment for the research that you'll see. So you have all of this information in your program. You'll see again session 2 at 11:30 with your 3 strands. Again, all in your program. Then after that, we will be heading in. You can grab your lunch. It's kind of a brown bag session. You're going to come on over to that Zoom meeting link, and we'll do some breakout groups and have some discussion for some research and work that faculty within our programs are working on, so we can engage in some discussion there. And then we will have our session 3 breakouts after that. This session will have 3 strands, as well as a 4th option, which is the e-portfolio. And this is an opportunity to see what the healers who have developed professional competency model portfolios for their work as they aspire to leadership in higher education and student affairs. So that should be exciting as well. And then at the end of the day, at 2:45, we will have our closing with Dr. Susana Hernandez, the chair of the Department of Educational Leadership. She will connect with us with some closing remarks. And as a reminder, we will also have that raffles for all students as part of the IRA grant from Student Affairs. Students in attendance at the end session will have an opportunity to earn or to win $150 towards a virtual registration conference for their own professional growth. So that's very exciting. But our presenters have earned that as part of their, to honor them for their presentations today. That also lets you know you could win another $150. So if you have an expensive registration fee or you want to do a couple of things, this will open up that opportunity for you. And we're very excited to be able to do that today. So that provides an organized the way that the program is aligned, and that again in your program for each strand that you would like to attend, you just click on the hot link and it's ready for you. And I'll send you there. I'll send you to a waiting room as our faculty facilitators prepare with the presenters in advance, and then they'll open the rooms. So with that, again, we thank you all for being here today, and I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Mendoza so that she can transition us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Walsh. So a reminder to the facilitators and all the student presenters to please arrive at your session approximately 10 minutes early. That gives you an opportunity to ensure that your shared screen is working properly, and that your facilitator and presenters have an opportunity to get to know each other and facilitate the session that we have for you. So again, just a quick reminder to arrive at your sessions approximately 10 minutes early before the hour that you're going to present. So ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our welcome and our introduction to the symposium, our leadership symposium. We're so grateful that you're here. Dr. Walsh and I will be monitoring the chat as well as monitoring the technology needs. So if anybody needs any support, please don't hesitate to reach out. We have the students, and we also have other support staff that will be extremely helpful. So at this time, we are going to close the webinar, and we are looking forward to the beginning of session one at session one at 10:30 this morning. So thank you very much.